in Antarctica. They jut out of the ice and snow, and they look perfect, just like those in Egypt. But they dwarf those in Egypt, like the Great Pyramid.
Linda Moulton Howe says satellite radar found a sealed door buried under Antarctica's ice. If she's right, the coldest place on Earth may be hiding more than frozen rock. Her trail points to old military missions, secret treaties, strange radar signals, the Wilkes Land anomaly, and witnesses who say something beneath the ice still gives off signs of activity. Antarctica does not feel empty here. It feels sealed. And the question is simple. Who knows what lies behind it? The world's most forbidden continent. Antarctica is almost too large to picture. It is roughly the size of the United States and Mexico combined, but no one lives there permanently. No cities, no normal roads, no local government. Only research stations, short missions, and an ice sheet that reaches almost 2.7 miles deep over land most people will never see. Under that ice sits a hidden world. Scientists have confirmed more than 400 buried lakes, deep valleys, and mountain ranges trapped beneath Antarctica for millions of years. So when people say the continent may be hiding something, that part is not fantasy. The ice really does cover places no human eye has fully explored. The surface alone can defeat almost anyone. Temperatures can fall near -50 degrees Fahrenheit, and winds can reach around 200 miles per hour. It is the coldest, driest, and windiest place on Earth. Still, since the 1940s, powerful nations have kept mapping it, watching it, and sending teams into its frozen silence. Then came 1959. 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty, including the United States and the Soviet Union, two enemies locked in the Cold War. The agreement banned military activity, froze land claims, and placed strict rules over the continent. At a time when the world was divided, Antarctica became the one place both sides agreed to lock down. That is why this feels strange. The first major arms control agreement of the Cold War was not about Europe, missiles, or space. It was about Antarctica. Two superpowers, after years of tension, agreed on one remote frozen continent in 1959. Maybe it was politics, maybe it was science, but the question remains, why did they move so fast to protect the ice? The mission that never made sense. August 1946 is when the Antarctica mystery starts to feel serious. Rear Admiral Richard Byrd, one of America's best-known polar explorers, was placed in charge of Task Force 68. This force included around 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft. The public reason was training, testing, and mapping. But for a frozen continent with no known enemy, the mission looked far bigger than a normal survey. This was not a small research trip. It was the largest military polar expedition ever sent to Antarctica. The fleet carried enough food, fuel, machines, and supplies for almost 6 months on the ice. That level of planning felt heavy for simple mapping. So the question becomes hard to ignore. Why send Task Force 68 with 13 ships and 33 aircraft just to study snow and coastlines? Behind the public explanation, there were deeper goals. Historian Diane Olsen-Belanger later wrote that the Navy also had quiet orders tied to territory and control. In public, the United States denied making land claims, but privately, the mission was studying routes, positions, and strategic zones. Antarctica was not only being mapped, it was being measured for future power. The fleet reached the Bay of Whales on January 15, 1947. For the next few weeks, aircraft flew over the ice, cameras kept running, and more than 70,000 photographs were taken across nearly 1.5 million square miles. Then the pace changed. The mission that was planned for months began to break down much earlier than expected. Pilot Conrad "Gus" Shin later said, "We didn't really know what we were doing." That one line captures the confusion around Operation High Jump. The men were flying dangerous routes over Antarctica, following unclear orders and facing conditions few people understood in 1947. Some thought they were mapping, some thought they were training. Others felt they were looking for something no one had fully explained. They left and never talked about it again. By February 1947, the mission was already being cut short. Task Force 68 had spent barely 3 months in Antarctica, even though it carried supplies for nearly 6 months. The official reason was the coming winter, but the team had arrived during Antarctic summer. So many people found that answer hard to accept. A mission built for a long stay suddenly turned back early. Then Richard Byrd gave an interview in March 1947 to El Mercurio in Chile. He warned that the United States should prepare for hostile aircraft coming from the polar regions. That was a strange warning for 1947 because Antarctica was supposed to be empty ice. So the question becomes simple: what made Byrd speak that way? After his debriefing, Byrd became quiet about the deeper details of Operation High Jump. He had spent his life exploring the polar world, but after 1947 he never gave a full public explanation of what happened there. Some records linked to the mission stayed difficult to access for decades. That silence only made the case feel heavier. In 1948, a European magazine called Brisant reported that the expedition had faced resistance from an unknown force. It mentioned lost aircraft, missing men, and damaged ships. The US Navy never confirmed that version. Still, because the mission ended so early, the report kept being repeated for generations, and the government did not lose interest in the region. By 1958, the United States launched Project Argus, detonating 3 nuclear devices high above the South Atlantic area near Antarctica's edge. Officially, it was a military science test. But placed beside High Jump, Byrd's warning, and the sealed records, it feels like the real concern did not end in 1947. It moved deeper into the ice. The satellite that found something. It shouldn't. NASA's GRACE satellite was built to measure Earth's gravity, not to hunt mysteries under the ice. But in 2006, it picked up something strange beneath Wilkes Land in East Antarctica. The signal came from below roughly 800 meters of ice. Whatever was down there pulled harder than expected, as if a massive hidden body was buried under the frozen continent. The size made it even harder to ignore. The hidden zone was estimated at 300 to 510 kilometers wide, larger than the state of Ohio. For comparison, the Chicxulub crater linked to the dinosaur extinction is about 180 kilometers wide. This Antarctic feature was far bigger, yet no drill has ever gone down and directly sampled it. At the center was a dense mass called a mascon. That means a heavy concentration of material sitting under the surface. But the strange part was how even it seemed from the middle toward the edges. Normal geology is usually messy, broken, and uneven. This one looked too smooth in the data, and that made scientists look closer. Then aircraft with ground-penetrating radar flew over the region. Instead of seeing only shattered rock, the scans showed smooth, curved shapes under the ice. That did not settle the mystery. It made it worse. If this was an impact scar, why did parts of it look so controlled? If it was natural, why did the shape feel so wrong? GRACE ended in 2017, but later satellites like GRACE-FO, Cryosat, and ICESat-2 kept passing over Antarctica. Their instruments still have to account for that strange pull beneath Wilkes Land. So the anomaly is not just an old report. It is a gravity problem still sitting under the ice, too large to ignore and still not fully explained. Something down there has a heartbeat. Seismic stations around Wilkes Land had one basic job: watch the ice. They were placed to track glacier pressure, cracks, and deep movement under East Antarctica. But reports connected to the GRACE anomaly describe something else. Low-frequency pulses rising from deep below. Not random noise, not one-time vibration. A steady rhythm, repeating like a buried system running on a cycle. Then the heat readings made the case harder to ignore. Under Antarctica's ice, rock should stay cold, crushed, and silent. But remote sensors reportedly detected a thermal pattern coming from the same buried zone. Not a sudden volcanic blast, not scattered warmth. A steady signal from deep underground where no clear heat source has ever been confirmed. Geophysicist Ralph von Fries, one of the scientists linked to the public GRACE data, pointed out the key problem. No one has directly sampled the anomaly. No drill has reached its center. No core sample has been brought up from under Wilkes Land. So the object remains known through gravity readings, radar returns, satellite data, and models, not direct proof. The strange part goes back decades. A 1959-60 US geophysical survey first flagged the region, and by 1962, geophysicist John Weishaupt suggested it could be a massive impact structure. Then the subject faded from public attention for years. The location existed. The data existed. But the deeper answer stayed buried under ice. Even now, the anomaly still affects instruments above it. It pulls on satellite measurements, changes radar readings, and adds noise to magnetic surveys. A normal buried mass would simply sit there. This one keeps showing signs that something unusual lies beneath Wilkes Land. That question keeps returning. What exactly rests under the ice, and why has no one opened it? The woman who spent 25 years listening. Linda Moulton Howe is not a random online voice. She studied communication at Stanford University, earned her master's degree in 1968, and later received 3 regional Emmy Awards. Her work with WCVB-TV Boston also placed her inside serious science reporting. So when Antarctica sources began contacting her, she treated the accounts like records that needed checking. Her first major Antarctica source came in 1998. He was a retired Navy flight engineer named Brian, who said he flew support missions from 1983 to 1997. He described restricted airspace, strange shapes under the ice, and one flight near the South Pole, where he saw a huge opening dropping deep into the ice. Howe checked his service record, then kept the account quiet. Over the next 25 years, more sources came forward from different missions, different branches, and different time periods. Some came from military work, while others were tied to radar and geophysics. One geophysicist said ice-penetrating radar showed clean geometric spaces below the surface, but when he tried to get his own data back, access was blocked. Then, on July 19, 2018, Howe interviewed a retired US Navy SEAL commander who served from 1984 to 2004. She reviewed his documents, hid his face, changed his voice, and called him Spartan 1. Later, Spartan 2, a Marine Corps intelligence source from 1992 to 2016, gave a separate account pointing towards similar hidden structures. Spartan 2 added the detail that widened the mystery. He said symbols seen inside the Antarctica structures also appeared in classified images from the Moon and Mars. That does not prove everything, but it raises a serious question. If even part of it is accurate, Antarctica may not be an isolated mystery. It may be one piece of something much older and far larger. The door under the ice. August 2003 is where Spartan 1's account turns sharply darker. He said his Navy SEAL team was sent from an aircraft carrier in the Ross Sea to McMurdo Station, the largest US base in Antarctica. From there, they moved 93 miles inland near the Beardmore Glacier. On paper, it was a research mission, but the real target, according to him, had already been marked by radar. What they reached did not look natural. Spartan 1 described a smooth black structure with 8 sides, shaped like a perfect octagon, rising about 18 feet above the ice. Engineers had already cleared the top section. Beneath it, he said, were 2 more octagonal levels going deeper into the frozen ground. The full buried area covered around 62 acres, almost the size of 50 football fields. Then came the entrance. Spartan 1 said he went about 50 feet below the ice to reach it. The doors were massive, between 18 and 30 feet thick. Outside, the temperature was around -40 degrees. But inside, the air stayed between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit, with no visible heaters, vents, or machines. That detail made the place feel active, not abandoned. Inside, he described a strange lime green light coming from both the ceiling and the floor. No lamps, no wires, no clear power source. The ceilings were about 22 to 28 feet high. Across the walls were carved symbols, around 8 inches tall and 2 inches deep, showing animals and strange shapes that looked familiar but did not match any known writing system. Spartan 1 said his team was there to protect scientists while they photographed and recorded the structure. One scientist refused to leave because he wanted more time with the symbols, but he was pulled out by force. The team was ordered back. Later, Spartan 1 said his commanders told him the structure was not made by humans and that it connected to beings involved in humanity's origins. That was the account he carried out of Antarctica. Star maps, sealed doors, and a pattern that spans planets. Those sealed doors were not just thick blocks of black material. According to Spartan 1, they were between 18 and 30 feet thick, yet they opened with almost no force. On the surface, he described carved shapes that looked like star maps, not decoration, but directions pointing far beyond the Milky Way. Then, Spartan 2 added something even stranger. He said the same symbols seen in Antarctica also appeared in classified images from the Moon and Mars. If that detail is true, then this was not just one hidden structure under the ice. It would point to the same markings appearing across different worlds. Howe's sources also said these places were not dead ruins. Since the 1970s, US military teams had allegedly explored more buried sites across Antarctica. Some were said to give off energy, keep a steady room temperature, and show strange images inside deep tunnels. That matters because ordinary ruins fall apart. These places sounded active. One symbol made the account even darker. Spartan described a carving that looked like the Black Sun, a symbol connected to SS imagery at Wewelsburg Castle in Germany. That link feels unsettling because Nazi Germany sent an expedition to Antarctica in 1938–39 and named a region New Swabia. Officially, it was exploration. What they truly hoped to find is still debated. After 25 years of hearing separate witnesses, Linda Moulton Howe reached a chilling possibility. The radar may not have found just one sealed door. It may have touched the edge of a buried network, older than recorded history, hidden under miles of ice, guarded from public view, and possibly still active. In this version, Antarctica is not empty. It is locked. The cover-up that spans every major government. For 25 years, Linda Moulton Howe did not rush this Antarctica material into public view. She says some witnesses gave information under serious limits, including agreements that kept names, coordinates, and documents hidden. So she protected sources, held back locations, and waited. That kind of delay does not feel like quick attention seeking. It feels like someone handling information she believed could not be released carelessly. Then came the satellite images. Howe says the locations given by her sources showed strange blank areas from above. Some parts looked blurred, blocked, or weakened across different image systems. To her, the question was simple. If nothing unusual exists there, why do the same frozen locations keep showing gaps where clear images should be? Now place that beside the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. Just 12 years after Operation Highjump, after Richard Byrd's private debriefing, and after military activity near the region, powerful nations agreed to restrict Antarctica. Publicly, it was about peace and science. But in this case, the treaty feels less like a warning about future trouble and more like a lock placed after something had already been found. The pattern became even harder to ignore when major figures visited Antarctica. John Kerry went there in 2016. Patriarch Kirill visited the same year. Buzz Aldrin also traveled there and was later medically evacuated. After that, a disturbing message was reported from his account saying, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." The post was later deleted, leaving only more questions. By early 2024, at 81 years old, Howe began releasing part of what she had gathered. Coordinates, redacted files, and satellite images with blank zones over the named areas. Her challenge was direct. Other nations have satellites. Scientists work on the ice every season. Independent teams have radar. If the information is wrong, someone should be able to show clear proof. So far, no major institution has given a public answer that closes the case. The silence is the answer. The strongest part does not begin with a witness. It begins with the ice itself. Under Wilkes Land, satellite data has shown a huge buried anomaly, often described as 300 to 510 kilometers wide. It has never been directly drilled. No team has brought up a clean sample from the center, and no public explanation has fully settled what sits beneath that part of Antarctica. Then comes the history. Operation High Jump was the largest polar military mission of its time, yet it ended early. Richard Byrd later warned about danger from the polar regions, then said very little publicly afterward. Years later, atomic tests happened near the Antarctic region, and in 1959, 12 nations signed a treaty that placed strict rules over the continent. Even without secret doors or hidden bases, that timeline feels strange. Then come Howe's sources. Their accounts cannot be checked by the public, but several details line up in a disturbing way. They describe a 62-acre black structure near the Beardmore Glacier, about 93 miles from McMurdo Station. They mention warm interiors, green light, sealed doors, star map carvings, and symbols said to resemble markings seen in restricted images from the Moon and Mars. These layers do not all need to be correct for the case to matter. The science raises questions. The history adds pressure. The witness accounts take it even further. So the real question becomes simple. What did Byrd's team find in 1947? Why did world powers move so quickly around Antarctica afterward? And why has such a massive buried anomaly still not been directly sampled? The sealed door may exist, or it may not. But the silence around Antarctica is real enough to notice. When a place is that large, that restricted, and still filled with unanswered data, silence starts to feel less like an accident and more like a decision. Maybe that is the real answer. Someone decided the world does not get to know what is under the ice. Antarctica may be frozen, but this mystery is still moving. Strange radar data, hidden testimony, sealed locations, and decades of silence all point to one question. What is buried beneath the ice? Subscribe now, because the next secret we uncover may be even harder to explain.